The question on the newly established federal medical centers, they are at various stages. Some were old hospitals that were converted and upgraded. General hospital existed. Some, like FMC in Moji, for instance, is just a land that was identified but yet had been established. So if you take all the newly established federal tertiary facilities in the last 4 or 5 years that we have inherited, and you ask the requested take-off grants they are asking, it's more than 85 billion naira. We cannot do that. So we have to prioritize. So by this provision, at least for 10, if you appropriate even 1 billion each, you will start to upgrade the face of the building, get them X-ray machines based on their needs. And with the approval of the appropriation, the ministry will have a procurement plan, and the specific needs of each of those will be adapted so that we know what this money would buy in each of those facilities. The question on the budget, where is the money coming from? Initially, as you very well know, the provisions were much lower, but with the President's own wisdom and bold decision in terms of the framing of the budget and the medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal policy paper, the quantum of resources that was provided includes this additional resource for health. Previously, health got about 3.6% of the federal budget. This has gone to 5%. So I believe the President has heard the yearnings of Nigerians for increased domestic finance, and he promised that during his campaign. So he's increasing the amount that is available to health, but not enough to get to the budget, the Abuja commitment of 15%. But it's on that path. So if you look at the direction of travel, I think the President has boldly increased the allocation for health. The challenge for us now is to ensure that we do what Nigerians will feel the impact of. And then I believe that we can go on that path. And we hope that other levels of government will also act in a commensurate manner with what federal government is doing so that we improve the health of Nigerians. So we take this as an increase, as a positive development, and really appreciate Mr. President's prioritization of this and very committed to execute on it. But it's not the 15% of our budget commitment, but we know that within the amount of resources available, this is doable, and that's why the President submitted it to you. And while we're doing that, also ensuring that we're being very efficient in putting the resources where it will be felt by Nigerians. You mentioned cancer. I would have said the same, Your distinguished Senator. I think the cancer situation is a real issue. That's why we made a bold statement by saying, let's have the cancer equipment, the operation maintenance, the infrastructure be invested upon in the 6 teaching hospitals, which the conversation has been going on. It has been going on long before we started, but we are now bringing it to closure and boldly putting the resources to ensure that the situation that you saw should not be what Nigerians experience. We've let that say people shouldn't go to Egypt for lack of linear accelerator in Nigeria. So that's why we brought in the NSIA to do that. The emergencies that you mentioned, the catastrophic expenditure fund, it's not only trauma, but also cancers, other serious deadly diseases that can tip a lot of people into poverty. And the tertiary hospitals are here. They've been financing huge burdens of uncompensated care through whatever is provided for, or through their IGRs, or just making adjustments and just taking the losses, because it's very difficult, especially with the burden of power that we have. So imagine if we solve the power issue and they have more fiscal room. That means they could in fact afford more waivers for those who need it. So as far the policy direction is very clear. We've given it, and I think that is the morally right thing to do, to actually ensure that lives are saved without many questions asked. But how we finance it would be a combination of funds like what we put in the budget, the IGR, and whatever we do to alleviate their constraints from things like power, which consumes quite a lot of their IGRs. A lot of them will tell you they spend a lot of money, even more than what they spend on the free care for trauma victims. It's there. The solar issue.
The MRI machine installation is in one of our teaching hospitals. The psychiatric hospitals are included in the specialty hospitals. Yes, and when we say 6 geopolitical zones, we realize that every part of this country is medically deprived. We are fair, equitable in how we allocate the efforts.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Please, sir. Okay. Okay.
The question on the
dilapidated buildings, dilapidated equipment, furniture. So we started the voyage of pride, what I would call pride, to the agency by constructing state zonal offices. In 2022, we finished the construction of 7 zonal state offices and the NACO office in Lagos. On this page, you will see the construction of different state offices: Zamfara, Plateau, Enugu, Lagos, additional works, and so on. This is extremely important for us because this is also part of what WHO cited us for, that you got to have conducive work environment. That is pulled under what is called regulatory system model. Because if we want to play in the global arena, then we have to adhere to global standards, and our staff will need to also be within that conducive environment. Going to page 5, I want to point the distinguished and the honorables to items 1 and item 3. This time last year, our performance was not as good because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We could not travel to inspect. We do good manufacturing practices inspection, good distribution practice inspection, good clinical practice inspection. But as you can see, for the first item, local travel and transport for inspections, we are doing very well. And the international travel and transport for GMP, we are doing very well, because it was only last year, March, that we started our routine foreign inspections, and that has all gone well in terms of the quality of medicines that we bring into the country. I would like to also point on page 6, item for the workshop, item 47, meetings, workshops, and conferences. Extremely important for us. Is part of our mandate to make sure that we collaborate internationally and organize workshops. We had one October 3 to October 6 on active pharmaceutical ingredients and excipients, local manufacturing workshop that brought scientists from all over the world. Some came physically, some also joined virtually. We do not make anything in Nigeria as far as pharmaceuticals are concerned. The only thing we make is water. Even that water has to be treated. If you use that water in the pharmaceutical industry, you have to also treat the waste. So many of our pharmaceutical manufacturers are bearing burdens that we will never believe. That is why NAFDAC took it upon herself to ensure that training is done on API manufacturing, active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturing. We have 2 sets of companies now that are trying to make APIs, EMZO and the FitSync Consortium. Even the non-active ingredient, starch, lactose, that we can even get locally. We don't make anything. That is part of the reason why, in order to make sure that the president's goals are fulfilled, that I'm urging the distinguished and the honorables to press hard that zero duty should be placed on anything pharmaceuticals. Zero duty for maybe 3 years, because we don't make anything. And we charge an arm and a leg. Our manufacturers are going through serious tough times. Something that has never happened before is happening now. When we approve medicines, we first go through a stage where we review the dossiers or the package, and then they go through the e-registration. Those that have been cleared to go through the e-registration after the dossier and everything has been scrutinized, they are not even responding to continue because they don't have money because of Forex. What they could buy this time last year is costing 3-4 times now. So they are not responding, and I spoke with the director yesterday. Why are they not responding? I told you, call them. And the director sent me messages, email messages, that they cannot clear it. They cannot continue. So we're going to have a critical shortage of medicines because of Forex. Special intervention should be made for pharmaceuticals. Special intervention. With that workshop, we are continuing. We did one on active pharmaceutical ingredient. We just finished one on antimicrobial resistance, because many of our people die of antimicrobial resistance because of misuse of antibiotics or taking antibiotics through meat, beef, livestock, and building resistance to medicines that ordinarily should work. So that is part of what NAFDAC is doing with the money. Please, let's go to page 7. Page 7 is showing us about the IGR, what we classify as IGR, and then the user fees. The items that fall under IGR are listed. They include sale of registration form, chemical permit, import permit, things like that. And the user fees are fees that are paid by manufacturers for the inspection of their site, for the laboratory analysis, for radiation, for processing fee, for post-marketing surveillance. It is something to approve a medicine. It is another to ensure that that medicine stays the same medicine that was approved. That is post-marketing surveillance. So for the IGR, we have 3.4 billion. For user fees, we have 12.39 or 12.4 billion roughly. I would like to bring the attention of the distinguished and honorables to the deductions that are made at source. When I joined NAFDAC, it was only 25% from our IGR, which is a lower revenue stream. Since 2021, they've been deducting 25% from both. So what has been deducted from our revenue now is 2.9 billion up to date. 2.9 billion, and we are short-staffed like crazy. We have equipment that we are yet to purchase. We have laboratories that we want to get WHO pre-qualification for. So if that money, deduction should stop because health is not a commodity. We are seeing it now where a medicine that costs 5,000 early part of this year is now costing 25,000 naira. It is hard for our people. Moving on to page 8, we are fortunate to have support from some international partners because they know now that NAFDAC is responsible, can manage their money. We have Bill Melinda Gates Foundation and also Alda Nepad on what is called AU3S, African Union Smart Safety Surveillance. This is about safety monitoring of the medicines, especially the vaccines. They stood by us during the pandemic to monitor the safety of all vaccines that came into the country. That is for 2023. Going to 2024, we have a projection on the last column, and that is about 10% over and above that of 2023 year end. Going to page 10, like I mentioned, we have a little bit, just a little, maybe 200 million naira difference in total personnel costs. We have been asking for personnel because we are burning candles at both ends, and we are almost at the middle now in terms of work-life balance. Work-life balance is absent from NAFDAC because if my director of investigation and enforcement calls me at 1 o'clock in the morning and said, DG, we are at the port waiting for a container that is trying to fly out. I cannot tell him that, oh, I'll call you in the morning. We don't have weekends, we don't have nights, we don't have days. Every time is work. We are on constant emergency calls. So the 7.97 billion is not enough. Page 10, sir, page 10, the top of page 10. We are seeking an increase because the life of our people depend on it. And our own lives also depend on it. Because there can be a breaking point when staff start falling ill, and they are actually falling ill because of too much work due to shortage of staff. Like I mentioned, for 2024, we don't have any overhead, and our capital cost, or the capital cost that we are given, or not given, allocated is 317 million naira. Moving on to the next page, which is page 11, talking about overhead. We have a list of our overhead items, from local travel to international travel, like I mentioned before. On page 12, the total cost is about 12.7 billion naira. And then when we then move on to page 13, we have the capital projects for 2024. And we have, again, our vehicles. Before my time, companies were sending vehicles for NAFDAC to come and inspect. And we know that equation. When companies have to send vehicles to come and inspect. Since my administration started, we have bought over 140 utility vehicles, because our mathematics is that each senatorial district should have a vehicle. So if you multiply 3 times 36 plus 1, 108 plus 3, that's 111. And then we have not talked about the ports, the borders, and then the technical directorates and the zonal offices. So vehicles is a tool. It's not a luxury for us. So we have vehicles, we have office equipment, and that all goes into the different pages. It's a lengthy list because we have to make sure we specify the types of equipment that we are hoping to procure. And it goes on to page 22. We see the building of NAFDAC state offices. We continue this voyage of making sure that pride continues to be restored to NAFDAC through our state offices, where MSMEs, we took on MSMEs in 2017. So the location of our offices should be such that our people can reach the offices easily and they can transport whatever samples that they want to submit. So we have Benue State, we have Oyo State, that is the laboratory part of it. We have Bauchi State, we have acquisition of land and construction of new corporate headquarters in Abuja. We have Isolo, part of renovation, continuous renovation. Then another item that is big for us is a provision for the ICT. Again, NAFDAC does not work on its own or what we just feel we should do. Part of what WHO global benchmarking requires, mandated, is digitization of our processes. We started this journey in 2018. About 60% of our processes are digitized. As a result, we now have more transparency, more effectiveness, more efficiency, because any regulatory agency should know what other regulatory agencies are doing from across the world. We have 194 regulatory agencies, and we have to know or learn from them whatever they are doing. So our ICT is very, very big, huge. Without that, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are. That continues until page 25. And then we have our plants and generators and solar that we are planning now. We spend a lot of money on generators, just like any other Nigerians, but for our laboratories, the equipment, a lot of our equipment must be kept connected 24/7. So we are now thinking of starting a pilot using 3 geographical zones to start supplementing with solar. And we have laboratory equipment. Again, when I got to NAFDAC, about 80% of our equipment were not working. And products were still being approved for consumption. Now, we have been re-equipping since 2018. We have spent over 6 billion naira on equipment. And this went through FEC or through Ministerial Tenders Board. So the list of equipment are there for the distinguished and honorables to see. So you can see, just a minute. Yeah. Okay. So for page 29, we have 11.757 proposed for our capital. That takes me to the last page again, reliance or collaboration with other regulatory agencies across the world, very, very important. In fact, what took us to maturity level 3 is bundled into what is called good regulatory practice and good reliance practice. Those are bundled under that title, but we have 9 modules under that title. And for those 9 modules, we have about 270 indicators that we needed to meet to get to maturity level 3, and 868 recommendations as of January 2018. We scaled through all those. We got maturity level 3 in March 2022. We are working towards maturity level 4 and what is called World Listed Authority. If we get maturity level 4, not if, we're going to get it. When we get maturity level 4 and World Listed Authority, guess what? Our our manufacturers can trade globally any product that passes through us after that attainment, because we must have scrutinized their submission in such a way it can stand side by side with any other regulatory agency in the world. So what we are seeing, what we're going to be seeing is global access. It is reduction of unemployment, increase in good distribution practice. And I wish Mr. President is listening. He should be jumping and being happy, because we need to change the paradigm. We need to change the narrative in terms of our economy. And NAFDAC is huge as far as that goes. Thank you very much.
The government. So far what is before us is your own presentation to them. That's your proposal. Having done that, the budget office sits down, look at what you have presented, and amend, increase or decrease, and then make that proposal to the National Assembly. Therefore, some of the missing links you have actually identified, like the overhead, may appear on the final submission to the National Assembly, and it may not. So I want you to take note. And because the committee doesn't have the budget as presented in details, we may not possibly say yes or no, but it is imperative to also mention that there is no way a big agency like yours will have budget operated without an overhead. That's for the first time I'm hearing this, and I'm sure the committee will take note of that and do the needful when we're going to actually scrutinize the comparatives. You open page 7, and you have made mention of your IGR. Part of the problem with the IGR has to do with the law, the Constitution itself, which I'm sure if you look at Section 88 and then Section 162, where monies are meant to come to the government is clearly spelled out. But that is not the issue. My main growth with the presentation is the deduction by the Office of the Accountant General Office. I don't know what circular you have received, on what authority they are deducting the money, on what law are they deducting this amount of money. And I want to know how long have they been doing this, so that the committee will rightly write to them to provide authorities that give them the power to deduct money at source. I don't know why this money and how this money, and this money, what percentage of this money is it? I'm sure, very positive, there is no law in place for this deduction, but the committee will do the needful to do the thing. Lastly, you made mention of the zero pharmaceutical duty. I understand where you are coming from, because I'm a Nigerian. I also understand that a lot of these drugs comes through borders without actually NAFDAC knowing it. Does this zero duty, in your own opinion, will it actually capture what you need as an agency to be able to provide incentives for pharmaceutical companies in Nigeria? Or do you have any other options apart from this zero pharmacy? Thank you.
Representing Sokoto South Senatorial District. The deduction from source by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, could it be through the TSA or is just a deduction? Please, thank you.
What do people do with that kind of funds? The foreign donor, the foreign donation, are you having a surplus? That is one question. Okay. Secondly, what do you do with those kind of funds?
How we must do it. Then, if you want the prices of medicine to reduce, the way to go is to incentivize people to produce APIs. If you don't produce APIs, it may be very difficult to say you are going to do zero duties on medications, because some of the funds you need to fund the budget is also coming from something like import duties. So if you cut it off completely, you are not going to get funds to even finance some of your products. And we know Nigerians, they are going to take advantage of this complete 0%. So what I think we should do is to incentivize people. You know, people like EMSO, government has to give them funds at a cheap rate to be able to produce some of these things. Then, talking about staff, you need to increase your staff, because the number of, you need a large number of people to monitor. Nigeria is such a big country. You need a large number of people, staffs. You should look for ways to increase the staff strength of NAFDAC. Those are my comments for now.
When they were giving us overhead, they were giving us 7 million naira every year. I said, 7 million, is it to buy diesel for Abuja alone per year or per quarter? So the fact that they are not giving us now is not impacting us negatively, because they were giving us almost nothing before. But if that is brought back, that will do in a significant way. That will help us as Nigerians in terms of what our people receive or eat, use every day, or drink every day. The deductions started 2021, taking 25% from both the lower revenue stream, IGR, and the user fees. And NAFDAC has suffered the consequence for it. And I'm going to link it with some of the tools that we need. 2021, sir. Yes, sir. I would defer to my Director of Accounts.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. All protocol fully observed. The fallout of deduction is as a result of Fiscal Responsibility Commission Act. Fiscal Responsibility Commission has a long list of revenue generating agencies in Nigeria. Unfortunately for us in NAFDAC, we were erroneously captured as one of the revenue generating revenue. Why am I saying that? The so-called revenue, the user fee, is not money that we can regard as revenue. As rightly pointed out in the process of presenting this budget, the DG mentioned it several times that the money is meant for inspection and lab analysis of our would-be clients. It's tantamount to saying that that money that comes to the treasury of NAFDAC is meant for a purpose. For Fiscal Responsibility Commission now to capture us as revenue generating agency like Customs, Nigeria Port Authority, Federal Land Revenue, whose main function is to generate revenue, I think something is fundamentally wrong. In 2021, our streams of revenue are two, the IGR and user fee. The deduction was basically from IGR, which was the lower proportion of our income. In 2021, July, they now extended it to user fee. While we were still contemplating with the government, they increased it from 25 to 40%. Because our money is warehoused in their office, so they have that liberty to tamper with. That is where the deduction is coming from in a nutshell.